everyone. My name is Kristian, and today I want to talk about Playwright as an end-to-end testing tool and how my team and me fell in love with it after having some not so stellar experiences with other end-to-end testing tools. So let's start with a little bit of info about me. As I said, I'm Kristian, and I'm a senior software engineer at SAP, working at a team that's developing a product heavily based on micro frontends. Some parts using iframes, some using web components with a lot of shadow DOM, etc. And that's going to be important for our reasons for choosing Playwright. And in this here talk, I would like to tell you a bit about what Playwright is, why I and my team think that it's a really good end-to-end tool, how to work with it, so getting started, optimizing code, using its awesome toolkit, and I'll be always coming back to the really good toolkit, and I hope you can get many tips along the way, because this is going to be a very code-centric talk, meaning there's going to be lots of hand-on and live coding, so bear with me if something doesn't work. So what's Playwright? Let's take a second to define what end-to-end testing is. So in general, end-to-end testing is the concept of taking a product and then using the user's perspective to see how users are going to be working with the product from beginning to end. Meaning we want to see the whole flow of the product. And in the case of Playwright, we want to see how our web applications are going to work. So what does Playwright give us? Well, it's going to give us most of the features we are expecting from modern end-to-end testing framework, like being able to test in all the modern browser engines, being able to use any platform or environment that we want, also waiting and retrying tests, meaning waiting for the web application to stabilize, and providing us with videos, screenshots, etc., but also providing a very cool kit of tools, which we'll be seeing heavily once we start working with Playwright right now. And before I come to the reason why we changed to Playwright, I want to show how a Playwright test looks like. And you see, this is a really small Playwright test, but that actually has everything you need to test a web page. You start with a test function, which provides you something called page. Now, page is actually the API to the browser, or even better said, to a current tab that the user is going to be interacting with. Meaning I can tell page, or I can use page to go to a URL. I can use page to take a look at if the web page has the correct title. I can get something on the page, like a button, by just using a CSS selector and then checking if it has an attribute, interacting with it, like clicking on it, and then looking if I navigated away. As you can see here, I've got a very clean API, and this is just typical promises-based code. A bit of syntactic sugar to not have to deal with thens, but in itself, it's really easy. And that's one of the main selling points why we chose Playwright, why we migrated all our end-to-end tests to Playwright. There's no magic. There's no global object that needs to be extended, synchronous, asynchronous operations that are, somehow strange. It's very clean and promises-based. It's also very fast. It showed us that we had some problems in our application when the user was too efficient. And it made our application in that way more robust. And also it made the experience better, because now we knew when we have to show the user something that there's something to be waited on, even if we thought that it was fast enough. It's also got great support from the community, like over 40k stargazers on GitHub. It's open source, developed by Microsoft. And you see I'm using Visual Studio Code, so I'm I'm really satisfied with the developing efforts of Microsoft in modern times. But here are 2 points that are near and dear to my heart because my team and me needed them. As I said, we are developing a product that's heavily based on micro frontends, meaning we are using iframes, but also web components with Shadow DOM. And Playwright pierces through Shadow DOM and works with iframes without breaking a sweat. Other frameworks have left us wanting. Also, something that we often have is having to go to another URL, coming back, opening a new tab or in a window, closing it, etc. Playwright handles it like a champ. So no problem there at all. And that's why we decided then in the end to migrate everything. Of course, really cool is that you don't have to write tests in JavaScript or TypeScript. If the team is mostly comfortable with Python, choose Python or Java, .NET, everything goes. And as I said, the tooling is just phenomenal. And while I'm talking about the tooling, let's take a look at how to start with it. So how to start using tools to start working with Playwright. So the Playwright team provides a nice npm initializer to get started really easily. So let's take a look. Let's create a demo directory. And in that directory, let's do a nice initializer. Okay. It asks which language we want. No GitHub Actions for now, and done. Playwright is there. It even generated an example end-to-end spec. Let's take a look at what it is. It's the same test I've already shown you. So this is the typical example test that you get for free from Playwright, which you can then start running by using the Playwright CLI tool. And you can see here it's running. It used 3 workers, we'll see why, but it also gave us another nice tool, an HTML report. Let's take a look at how that looks like. So this is a nice table showing us why it's 3 workers, because it's testing by default all modern browser engines. And if we get into one of those, we can see how the test went. Now, what would be really cool is if we had additional tools, like some screenshots, videos, and tracing. Let's configure it. It's extremely easy. We go into our config, and then in the use section, let's say that we want always tracing, we want video always, and we always want a screenshot. Okay, and now we can run the test again. Good thing is that it's really fast. And then we can take a look at the report again. And now the reports are substantial. We see the screenshot where it landed. We can see a video of what it did. So it went to the page and clicked on the button. Good. But we can also see something really interesting, a trace. Now, what's a trace? A trace is everything you need to be able to look at an end-to-end test after it happened. So if you need to debug it, it's going to provide you with everything you can imagine. It's going to provide you with whatever Playwright did in a test step. It provides you what happened in the web developer console. It provides you with any network calls that happened, and of course with the whole stack. And it tells you exactly which step of the test it was. The best thing is you can send the trace to a colleague to ask if they can help you debug. So they don't have to sit with you at a computer. They don't have to look at your screen share. You can just send it to them, and then they can analyze and take a look at what went wrong, because the whole web page source is here. Everything is here. So tracing is extremely powerful. So now we've seen some really nice tools, and we've enabled some even better looking at our tests. So now it's time to actually do some tests ourselves. So let's delete the example tests here. We don't need them because we're going to be doing our own tests. And what we'll be doing is we'll be shopping a bit. So we'll go to a website which gives us a demo shopping app, and we'll write end-to-end tests for that page. And when I say write, I'm lying. We're not going to be writing any tests. We're going to be using another awesome Playwright tool. We're going to be generating our tests. What that means, I'm going to be clicking around and Playwright is going to write my tests for me. I know it sounds strange. It sounds like something that's probably not going to work, but let's give it the benefit of the doubt. So let's type the code generator. It's going to generate for me what? It's going to generate for me one of those, let's say, page APIs, and also a tool, the Playwright inspector, that's going to be looking at what I'm doing. As I said, we're going to be using a demo shopping app. So I'll visit it here. And you can see Playwright already started writing tests. Now let's enter. So the usernames are here left, password is here. So let's enter the standard user. And in password, let's enter secret sauce. And login. And everything is already here. Now let's add something to the cart and another thing. Let's click on the cart, look if it's okay. And let's go to the checkout. We have to enter some data. So let's enter some cool name. And by the way, 12345 is actually the zip code of Gotham. So that's good. And let's take a look at the finishing stuff, and we are done with our tests. So now I can stop the recording and I can copy the code. Let's go back into our shopping spec and paste the code. So now we have already test code. Let's try running it. So I can now stop the code gen and I can say, and what happens now is it's going to do 3 browsers again, and it's passing. So the test passes. So we have now an end-to-end test of our shopping experience. What if we wanted to see how the test looks like in a browser? So that's actually really easy. We can tell it to test, but we put it into debug mode. I could do something called headed, but then it would close right away after being done. And debug allows me to click when I want it to start to test something. Okay, and one thing I'm going to also be doing is say I just want Chromium because I don't need 3 browsers one after the other. So these are Chromium, this is the Playwright inspector, and I tell it to start. And I see it's already done. Extremely fast. And we've seen what happened. If I wanted to see what happens somewhere, so I wanted it to pause, I could use the same API with a page pause, and then let's start running it again. Okay. And I click play, and it stopped here where I told it to. And now at this point in debug, I can do whatever I want. Let's say that I want to also have this text. So I say explore, and it says, okay, this is the selector I can use to check if the text is here. So let's do it now. Let's go back to the test. And then let's say here, let's say that we want to get the thank you text page locator. And now the locator that we got. And now we will expect for that thank you text element to contain text. Which one? Well, this one. This is maybe not a too smart test, but important is that we can test that the text is actually there. I think that another selector would be better. And since this is a normal browser, I can just use developer tools. Look, H2 complete header. So let's do that. Let's use that. So I can say here, instead of text, I can say H2 complete header. I'll remove the page pause here, stop the tests, and I'll now run it in the normal headless mode without seeing browsers, and let's see if it works. And it passes again because the text is actually there. And that's it. We're done. We have an end-to-end test, and we can probably wrap up this talk, but not yet. Let's take a look at how we can organize code, because this here is a test, but it's horrible to look at. And there's something called the page object model that Playwright encourages to use. It means that we should extract pages we are testing into their own files or objects so that we can abstract and encapsulate different parts of a web page. What's the typical thing that goes there? It's usually like a go-to method, so going to a page, then all the locators that we have already seen, like the thank you text or whatever, and all the actions that happen, like filling in a field, like clicking on something or whatever. And then you get a test that's really easy to read and understand. So let's try it. So first thing here, let's remove all the comments just to have a bit of less text here. Good, you're already done. And now you see this is not really easy to read. But now let's create a new folder. Let's call it page objects, and then let's see. So one page object that we already that we obviously have. So let's leave the login for now. The inventory. So we're going to have an inventory page. Okay. So let's call it inventory page. How does a page object look like? It's just a class. So I call it inventory page. And what it needs access to the API. So it needs also this page object, right? And what do we do on the inventory page? Well, we are going to be navigating to it for the first thing. So as I said, let's create a goto method. So goto. What we use here is this page goto, and we take the inventory. Now, goto, as you can see here, is delivering a promise, meaning I have to await it, and of course then the whole function has to be async. And now I can use this. I can use it in a sense that I say inventory page is an inventory page, and just give it the page object that I just told it there. And then instead of going here, I can say inventory page go to. So the first thing, it's going to be going to the inventory page. We are not going to reach it because we need to log in. And then on the inventory page, it's clicking on these here things. So as I said, one of the things that we need there is to fill our shopping cart. Of course, there's going to be some more asynchronous stuff. And then we can take the code here, and we have to use the instance that we have here. Good. And now we can say inventory page dot fill shopping cart. Now, before we go on, let's see if this works, if it still works. And a couple of seconds later, we see that it works. And it's already looking much, much nicer. So the next thing that's happening is we are clicking on the cart icon. The cart icon isn't really part of the inventory page. It's more like part of the top bar. So let's call it top bar page. And again, it's the same. We need the top bar page. That page object needs the API. And then we can tell it, click on shopping cart. And of course, it's an asynchronous function and it uses the page. Of course, it has to be a private field. And now I can, of course, get it here. Top bar page is a new top bar page. Now I can take a look at the top bar page, click on shopping cart. And what happens then? We should be already on another page. So let's also take this exception, so this assertion, and add it here. Of course, expect we have to import it. And now we have lost some more lines of the code. You see, it's starting to come together. We can run the tests again to see if everything is still working because we are refactoring a bit. Very nice. And now we are at the checkout page. So let's create a new checkout page. And of course, we need our API. And then what we are going to do is we are going to go to the checkout. So go to checkout. Of course we need. There we go. That's done. And then we are going to be filling in the checkout. Fill in details. Just to make it a bit faster. Whoop. And then we have to finish checkout. Good. Now let's also get the checkout page. And then the checkout page, we said we first want to go to it, and then we want to fill in the details, and then we also want to finish the checkout. There we go. Okay, let's take a look if it still works. And it does. So you can see it's looking much better now, right? And this is how you can clean up your tests. So you see now, okay, we still have the login issue, but we're going to be doing something special here. But if you look at the rest here, we went to the inventory page, we filled the shopping cart, we clicked on the shopping cart on the top bar, we went to the checkout, filled in the details, finished the checkout, and then we waited for the thank you. Of course, this here could have also been extracted to a, let's say, thank you page or finish page or whatever, right? So what is something cool that you can also do is to log in only once. It means that a typical thing is that you have many tests and then you log in for each test, and that's not good. What we need is a way of logging in once and then storing the data. The good thing is Playwright has built-in support for it, and it's extremely easy. What you need is just one script file, which is going to do the login. And then you include that script to be run before the tests, because the data from the login, the cookies and the local and session storage is going to be stored into a file, which then Playwright will provide to any tests it needs. Instead of me writing it now from the start, this is the this is the global setup script. What it does is extremely easy. It has the page API. We need our own login logic here. See here. And then it's going to store whatever we filled in the login into a file called storage state JSON. Okay. So meaning this will run before any test runs. And then here in the storage state JSON, the login data is going to be. Okay. And what we have to do still is we have to include the setup script in our config file. For that, we have to go into our config file and tell it to have a global setup script, which is, let's take a look at the example here, just so that I don't do anything wrong. So we need to require the file, and then in use, we need to tell the tests. So we need to tell it where this storage state is. And that's it. That's everything you need. So now, before any test runs, it's going to do a login. So you see the login is not here anymore. So let's test it once more. And it passes. You see, we logged in, everything is fine and working. And now we went from this big test to this nice test with some pages that logs in automatically for any. So if we had more tests here, they would be also logged in. We fill the shopping cart, click the shopping cart, whatever we need. And you see, this is why we fell in love with Playwright. Some more things I would like to mention today is probably the most important thing is to know how to help yourself when problems arise. And Playwright has the typical problems that any end-to-end test has, like waiting for selector. So let's say you were trying to reach a DOM element, but it's timing out. So you have to check if there is a misspelling, if the element is even there. And that's where debug mode comes in. And you've seen debug mode. So just going into a test and saying, let's say that you know that the problem is somewhere here. You can always say page pause, and it's going to stop here. So between filling in the details and finishing the checkout, or in any of the parts inside. So that's good. Another typical error is if you have more than one element. So let's say that you want to fill in an input, right? If you have a selector that has multiple elements, like let's say dot my input, like a class, it's going to error out because it says, no, I want to only fill one element because it makes sense. Every action should be very deterministic. So try to always operate on only one element unless it needs more, like let's say selecting like 5 elements and then counting them. Of course, there should be 5 elements. When you step over any of these issues, what to do? So the first thing is the reporter is always very chatty, and it's going to let you know like there's something wrong. Like let's go here, let's do something wrong, let's let it run. And now it's going to be waiting on a timeout for 30 seconds. So, or maybe not because this is an error. Let's see. And then you see here, it's really chatty. So I expected to contain text, and then I was waiting and I got this, but I didn't get what you wanted from me. And I tried again and I tried again and I tried again. So it's really chatty. It's going to tell you lots of stuff. Another thing is also check the screenshot video. So if you get an error, it's going to be automatically opening the HTML report. So I can go now to the report and see here. So this is it's even color coded. You can see the screenshot where it went wrong. You can see here the step. You can see the trace and see that it was on this page and on this page, and this is where it couldn't complete anything anymore. And of course you have a video to see if it failed maybe somewhere in the middle, right? So you got all those nice tools. One thing to watch out for is if you're analyzing the trace or sending it to someone else, traces do contain passwords. So if I take a look here at the trace, at the login, the good thing is I don't see the login here because it was before the test. But if you had some entering of sensitive data here, like here, first name, last name, those will be visible. You see here, value, Wayne, and the same is for password. So only send traces to people you trust, like your colleagues. Okay. And the one last thing are just a couple more tips to give you on the road. Something that we have seen is like if you need a parent element. That's not as straightforward as I would like it, but it's actually really easy. If you locate something and then you need the parent element, you can use the XPath selector. Like ... means just one level above, right? So that's easy. Please use the typical tools, prettier, ESLint, whatever. And one rule in ESLint that I recommend above all else is to put the no floating promises as an error. It means that whenever you don't await a promise, you're going to error out. That's really important because it can lead to unexpected behavior with your tests, mostly to false positives. If you have sensitive or environment-specific data, like a URL for like your development environment or integration or whatever, use environment variables. Playwright runs with Node. You've got access to the process, meaning you can just go to process.env and get whatever you need. And also there's a nice, as always, an awesome list of whatever, and there's also one awesome list for Playwright, so that's really recommended. And that's all for today. I hope that you could understand a bit why Playwright is so good, how easy it is to write tests, how easy it is to clean them up, and how easy it is to actually be fast and productive without needing a lot of magic. So thank you very much and have a nice evening or day.